Hi folks, wherever you are watching around the world, welcome to the iRacing INDYCAR Challenge here at Watkins Glen International, where today you'll see the 45-lap American Cross Grand Prix. Lee Diffie, Townsend Bell and Paul Tracy with you here, just as we are for each and every round of the NTT INDYCAR Series on NBC Sports. But today, something different, something special, where we hope we can give you some enjoyment and somewhat of a break from this very challenging time that we're all in at the moment as the world deals with the coronavirus pandemic. Today's race is the first of 6 INDYCAR events on iRacing, and we'll tell you more about that throughout today's broadcast. But there is an impressive field of 25 cars, many names familiar, some new though, and some very different design schemes as well that we will take, I think, a little while to get used to. But most importantly today, it's going to go a long way in satisfying the INDYCAR racing withdrawals that we've all been experiencing. And to get things going, let's join the INDYCAR Ministry Chaplain, Chuck Lessick, who offers today's invocation from his home in Brownsburg, Indiana.
Let's pray. Lord God, thank you for today and the opportunity it provides each one of us. In this time of social distancing, loneliness, isolation, and fear, we're thankful for our INDYCAR family and the ability to get together and connect through this virtual INDYCAR race. We're thankful that the technology that so often unintentionally separates us can also be used to unite all of us through this event. We ask that the time spent together today during this race allow us to forget this new normal for just a little while, and that it be a time of unity, remembering that none of us are alone, and that you are with us in this challenge. We thank you for the human spirit of competition, which is the reason we're together today, and ask your blessing over all of us, as we are thankful we can enjoy a Saturday watching this race together, looking forward to a time where we can all unite in person at the racetrack. It's in Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Chuck, thank you very much for that. And we are not far away from the race start. Now, you've seen him at some of the biggest sporting events in the world, and now he is coming to you from his living room in Chicago, Illinois, the voice of Back Home Again in Indiana at the Indianapolis 500 and national anthem singer for the Chicago Blackhawks, Mr. Jim Corneliuson.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave for the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Whether it's at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, at the Chicago Blackhawks, or in his own living room, Jim Corneliuson. Amazing stuff. So we get really excited now because there's 45 laps ahead, 25 INDYCARs around Watkins Glen International, 45 laps or 75 minutes, we have to say. And welcoming in my regular teammates, Paul Tracy and Townsend Bell. Townsend, you first up. What are your thoughts on today?
Well, it's an exciting time, Lee. These drivers have been practicing around the clock, some of them up since 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, trying to figure out how to optimize everything around this Watkins Glen road course. The biggest challenge really is that they're so used, the drivers are, to making adjustments to their own cars with their own engineers. In today's race, everybody is on an identical setup. This is truly going to be a measure of driver ability and really an exercise in patience. So, Paul, you know a lot about patience. What are these guys going to be looking forward to today?
Well, this is old hat for some young drivers and new hat for some old drivers. A lot of these guys are not experienced. Like a lot of the older drivers, like don't have a lot of iRacing experience, but a lot of these new young cats spend a lot of time on these sims. But the other factor, we got equal setups throughout the field, but we don't have equal setups at home. We have guys that are on very basic equipment that you could get at like a big box store. And then we have guys with full-blown rigs like Simcraft has, where very high-end, very expensive simulators. So it's going to be an interesting day to watch these guys. Varying equipment at home, all equal cars on track.
Let's take a look at the starting grid for you, because qualifying completed not that long ago, and Sage Karam, who is one of the favorites for this event, T-Bell, starts from the pole position alongside Felix Rosenqvist.
Yeah, no big surprises here. Karam and Rosenqvist, followed by Power and Speed. Those four are the ones everybody was talking about all week as the gunners, the guys with the sim experience that were expected to be contenders. How about Scott McLaughlin inside row 4, starting next to him, his Team Penske teammate Simon Pagenaud, then Newgarden with Team Penske. And isn't it ironic that in a series where everything's the same here, everybody's on simulators, you see all those Penske's guys qualifying inside the top 10.
Surprised to see Pato Award down the list. He's a pretty heavy-duty gamer, so, and Kyle Kaiser, but he's a new guy to it. He saw on his social media that he just got a sim. So Jimmy Johnson, he's another guy that spends a lot of time in the sim doing NASCAR. It's his first time racing in an INDYCAR. For you guys here at home, this is a first-time experience.
Speaking of from home, as we roll through the remainder of the grid, I'm talking to you from my home in Connecticut on the east coast of the United States. Paul is at his home in Scottsdale, Arizona, and Townsend is at his home just outside of LA in California in the Pacific Palisades. So we're excited to be with you in this virtual world. But these guys, while there's been a lot of laughs and they've been communicating with each other, they're going to take this seriously. And this is the American Red Cross Grand Prix, Watkins Glen International. Exciting time. Sage Karam and Felix Rosenqvist on the front row. 45 laps. And this is the first of 6 INDYCAR races in this format to get us through this racing drought. And it's time to bring the action at Watkins Glen. Karam straight to the lead. Rosenqvist will defend that inside line.
Been watching online, Townsend, and Sage Karam is very quick. He was very quick yesterday in free practice as he clears the S's and he's going up the hill, and he's got a nice little gap on Rosenqvist already.
Karam with a great jump there. That Wick Chevrolet looking for an early lead, an early gap to build. Now Scott Speed taking a look on Rosenqvist as they come to the bus stop. Single file and a big accident in the back. Is that Palou? That might be Alex Palou.
Yes, similar colour scheme to Alexander Rossi, but more dark colours on that car. I think it was Alex Palou from Dale Coyne Racing. Look at Scott Speed in third, all over Felix Rosenqvist as they go into turn 6, the laces of the boot. Full course, 3.4 miles here at Watkins Glen.
No full course caution in this type of racing. Those cars that crashed coming up to the chicane will go back into the pits for repairs. They will get a virtual tow back, and they will rejoin the race with their cars repaired. As
Oliver Askew on the inside. What a move that was from the Arrow McLaren SP driver. Beautiful. You can tell that it's Askew with those blue wing end plates.
Here we are coming up out of the S's. See these cars drafting, moving around. Car pops out to the outside, and they make contact right there. He hits the fence, and then ricochets back out in front of the rest of the cars, and it was a huge pileup.
So it was, in fact, Alexander Rossi in that big lap 1 crash. Sage Karam, Felix Rosenqvist, Scott Speed, Oliver Askew's the big mover there.
Will Powers making a move right here on Askew. He's in the draft. As he comes out, will he pop to the inside? Will Askew block? Askew is down the middle of the road. Will Power backs off wisely into that chicane. Townsend, that's a tough place to pass going two abreast in there.
I spent a long time with Will Power on the phone on an interview, Zoom chat, if you will, yesterday. And what he talked about, Power talked about patience. He said this is really going to come down to not getting, I'm calling it digital courage, guys, early in the race. Being patient, seeing it all the way through to the finish. And you can see Power taking his own advice there, slotting back into 5th place as there's more action going on behind him.
In this 45-lapper PT, you'll see 2 pit stops. The suggested pit window is about 15 laps, we'll see. And if indeed you have a big crash like Alexander Rossi did, you get 2 resets to start afresh in this race.
Yeah, the key to winning any race, obviously, is not crashing, not going down runoffs, not making mistakes. In this type of racing, you will get the opportunity to go back in racing, but the key is to not crash and not make mistakes and spend time in the pit lane for repairs.
I think the other thing, Paul, is consistency, and precisely consistent. That last lap, Karam did a 26.6, Rosenquist a 26.6. So those 2 guys up front matching each other pace for pace. Scott Speed at a 26.9, Askew at a 27.0. So your ability to precisely and consistently hit your marks, hit every apex is really the key here. Just like the real thing.
No, it is like the real thing. I've driven some of these sims, and I'm by no means an expert at it, but these cars, the way they're set up through iRacing, you have cold tires. It takes a little bit to get them up to temperature. There's tire wear, there's fuel burn off. So these cars, the lap times will change throughout the run.
And the one thing that iRacing and INDYCAR stipulated to the drivers that they were in agreement, we don't want you to have any adjustability from an engineering standpoint. You're all going to be on the same level playing field. There's no adjustments to your respective Dalaras. This is going to be kind of a fair fight, so to speak. And Sage Karam has a 1.5 second lead over Felix Rosenquist. Scott Speed, who has an incredible record at iRacing on road courses, and then the youngster, the rookie to the NTT IndyCar Series, the reigning Indy Lights champion, Oliver Askew, showing a good early pace.
Scott McLaughlin now has moved up to 7th. Australian Supercars champion, looking for his opportunity to get to the States and drive for Penske Racing. That was scheduled to start at the Indy Grand Prix. We'll wait and see with the new schedule how that pans out for him, but there's a lot of excitement, Lee, about him coming stateside.
Yeah, very much so. And we don't know. I was talking to Scott earlier today when he got up at 3:30 in the morning to be ready for this race. Of course, he's in Australia. Tight battle here. Look at this. This is really good stuff between Will Power and Alex Palou.
Alex Palou making a really nice move there on Will Power as Oliver Askew is able to open up a little bit of a gap. And so many people have been talking about this young rookie, Palou, driving for Team Go, Dale Coyne Racing, been racing over in Asia and Japan, and has had great results and really comes into this season with a lot of hype as a rookie. Totally focused and obviously doing a great job here.
Felix Rosenquist is a big time gamer. He's been playing all winter long. He's been doing F1. He's been doing all kinds of racing. So right now, with Karam holding him off, we'll just see how this plays out. Rosenquist could be just biding his time, waiting for the opportunity on the pit stops to get by. Little dirt kicked up there.
Scott McLaughlin on screen, one of the Penske drivers, Team Penske drivers, and he was telling me today that, because of course he was meant to make his NTT IndyCar Racing debut at the Grand Prix of Indianapolis 2 weeks before, in the month of May, but as you may have seen, there's been a revised and an amended schedule released earlier this week, and now that Grand Prix of Indianapolis will be on the 4th of July weekend, sharing that weekend with the Brickyard 400. So Scott's not sure, because the Supercars Championship in Australia has not yet released what their future calendar looks like for the 2020 season. He hopes that it allows him to still be able to do that, and maybe he might make his debut somewhere else in the NTT IndyCar Series.
Take a look at this replay here. I think we might be riding on board the number 28, normally driven by Ryan Hunter-Reay, the DHL Honda. This is Kyle Kirkwood, young Andretti driver, getting wide there in the right-hander, and that's what I talk about, just missing the apex. It's so easy to miss apexes in this kind of format, and you really have to not over push things going into the corner on entry speed. It's just really easy to lose the front end.
Power on Askew.
Will Power making moves. He looks exactly how he drives in real life, guys. He's been inside, outside, making all kinds of moves. But nice, clean pass there.
I gotta wonder, guys, is that Power going forward or is that Askew going backwards? Because Palou is past Askew, now Power. Now Askew finds himself under pressure from McLaughlin as they come down to turn 1.
McLaughlin fades, had a look on the inside into turn 1. Let's ride with Oliver Askew. 23-year-old INDYCAR rookie.
A lot of experience with this driver. He's done a lot of different racing, whether it be sports cars, prototypes, Indy Lights. He's won in everything he's done, and now he's stepping up into the INDYCAR ranks, and he's got a big, bright future in front of him. Oh, gets a little wide. McLaughlin's on the outside and in contact.
Askew and McLaughlin and then
Pagano, Newgarden.
That's 3 Penske cars all collide. And Askew's able to recover and get going again, but that was a really awkward incident for the Team Penske pilots.
Damage on these cars up front. No front wing for Pagano. As he slides by, he will have to come to pit lane for repairs on that car.
That's 3 out of 4 Team Penske drivers in one incident at the bus stop. And Pagano, massive damage, missing his engine cover.
The guy who was the benefactor of that crash was Graham Rahal, who slid up a few positions.
Let's have another look at that.
So McLaughlin gets a nice draft, gets up the inside here, but he's not all the way up there, and tries to. Askew runs him in deep. They go abreast through the center, and then they make contact.
Paul, I think McLaughlin left plenty of room there, but Askew climbed the curb pretty heavily and just kicked out wide. We're on board with Newgarden. We'll get a good view of it here. There's Pagano. He has to check up as both cars are wrecking. And bam, right into his teammate. There goes the engine cover, the rear wing, and I think that was Graham Rahal, as you pointed out, right on by.
That whole deal. So Jimmy Johnson now has moved up to 14th. He's 31 seconds back of the leader, but here Will Power pressing forward again. He's moving up the ladder.
And fellas, as predicted, when we were in St. Petersburg ready to get the real season going, this youngster, Alex Palou, the young Spaniard, there's been so much talk about him, a lot of hype, a lot of excitement around him, and this is what we were expecting him to do on the streets of St. Petersburg a few weeks ago, but he's doing it here on the iRacing INDYCAR Challenge, the American Red Cross Grand Prix here at Watkins Glen. This youngster is delivering just like he did in the Japan Super Formula. Let's ride with Will Power for a moment.
Like I said, to one of the big box stores and pick up a system for literally a couple $100, or the sky is the limit. Some of these simulators that these guys have at home, like the SimCraft unit, can be upwards of $100,000, and then you get into the simulators Townsend like Formula One have, and you're talking $50-60 million simulators that these drivers are using at Chevy and Toyota, and you've driven one at Lexus yourself.
Yeah, I mean, really what we're talking about is the hardware on that side, but the software is the same. So this is the iRacing platform. You can race NASCAR, INDYCAR, off-road trucks, World of Outlaws. The company is owned by John Henry, who owns the Red Sox and also a partner in Roush Fenway Racing. And they've been around for many years now, and there's over 100,000 active users. You can log on just about any time and race literally just about every racetrack in the world. But it's challenging. I'm not going to tell you that it's easy. It takes work to figure out how to just navigate some of the courses with the digital controls. But once you start doing it, you develop the muscle memory. And at some point, you can be as good as these guys, because I'm just sitting around here marveling at how consistent these guys are hitting their marks. Very, very precise. And this Palou is doing a really great job to hold off Will Power, who's considered one of the best sim racers for the very reason that he is so good. He has such a high operating frequency. The number of inputs and adjustments he makes per second, if you will, is really at the top end of the field.
Lee, I got to tell you, I mean, I'm not a gamer, never have been a big gamer. I did play, PlayStation games back in the day. This all kind of started back in the day with Gran Turismo, and that kind of got the ball rolling with all of this simulation. But I wasn't big time into it, and I really started doing this after you lined me up with the ride at Bathurst, and arguably that is one of the hardest tracks in the world to learn. And I got on a friend of mine's sim and started using his and learned the track that way. And literally, I would have to say that driving these sims is probably harder than doing the real thing, because it's just, there's so much going on, and I literally crashed probably 500 times.
I remember
Bathurst.
You,
and then, but when I got to the track, I knew the track. I knew exactly where everything went, and I had a fantastic weekend, no mistakes. And I really credit the sim for giving me that opportunity, because back in the day when I started racing, there was none of this. For guys like Mario and AJ, think about back in the day, you went to these tracks all over the world and you had to physically learn them. The advantage now that these drivers have, being young kids, whether you're 5, 6, 7, up until you start car racing at 16 years old, to learn every single track there is around the world. What a huge advantage it is now versus back in the day.
Like for these two guys on screen, that is Santino Ferrucci in the Sealmaster car. Here's Alex Palou and Will Power at the bus stop. Power goes through the grass and just had to gather it back up there, and then loses a little bit of ground.
And Power was smart to go through the grass, because inside that apex curve, there's some big sausages there, Paul, that can really launch you.
Oh, absolutely. When you get off in one of these cars, it launches you in the air. It'll break a wing off exactly the same as what it does in real life. So you want to stay off the curbs. You want to stay out of the grass and out of the gravel and avoid damage. And that was a smart move by Will Power. I'm pretty impressed with how Will Power's doing.
Yeah, he's doing a great job. And Santino Ferrucci, it's going to take a little bit to get used to seeing Ferrucci in those Sealmaster colors, but he might be the biggest mover. Started well down in the field, I think ran around 20th or 22nd, and has moved well up into 10th place right now, just in front of Kyle Kaiser in that Hoopghost car we were seeing earlier. Those two battling their way to the front.
By the way, guys, we need to just step away from the racing just for a moment. We'll keep a watchful eye on it, because we need to welcome in American Red Cross Indiana Region CEO. This is Chad Priest. This is a very special event. I want to say thanks to American Red Cross for stepping up and sponsoring this event. Chad, welcome. Thank you for the sponsorship, and are you enjoying the race so far?
No, it's amazing. Thank you so much for having me, and thanks to Roger Penske, Mark Miles, the team at INDYCAR, for this wonderful partnership.
Well, listen, we need to talk about the Sleeves Up Challenge. While most of us are in lockdown mode, trying to preserve our own health, etc., the American Red Cross the case is, as always, you're always in need of more blood donors. How are people able to do that safely, in a healthy manner? What's the procedure going forward with this Sleeves Up Challenge and drive?
Well, you're absolutely right. As a result of COVID-19, we have seen 9,000 blood drives canceled across the United States. That's about 300,000 donations that we've lost. And so our team is working very hard to schedule new drives. We're proud of our partnership with INDYCAR through the Sleeves Up campaign. INDYCAR is challenging race fans all over the country to get to 1,000 units of blood. And it's very simple to do. You can go to redcrossblood.org, find a drive anywhere near you in the country, sign up online. Our drives, we've taken great precautions to make them as safe as possible. You'll see enhanced screening when you come into our drive locations. Our technicians are fabulous phlebotomists, always using personal protective equipment, sanitizing surfaces, keeping good social distance. You know, we haven't figured out a way to make blood without getting it from other people. And so even during this time, it's critical that Americans step up and donate.
And that was redcrossblood.org. If you are able to do that, I know that Chad and the American Red Cross will be very, very grateful. Thanks very much, Chad. Thanks again for the sponsorship, and enjoy the remainder of the race. We're almost at first pit stop time.
Thanks. Happy racing.
Chad Priest there, the American Red Cross Indiana Region CEO, and this has been wonderful to have the American Red Cross with this event. We ride with Kyle Kirkwood. This is a young American who is spectacular. He's hassling Pato O'Ward here into the bus stop, goes very deep, and he's able to pull it off. That's a nice move. This is a young fellow who has won 4 championships in the last 3 years, Townsend, and this guy is going somewhere very, very fast.
Yeah, on that road to Indy and doing a nice job subbing for Ryan Hunter-Reay, who I imagine's, dockside, Paul, right now in Fort Lauderdale, having a cold one, watching his young gun take the DHL car to the front.
Better watch his back. Better have eyes in the back of his head when you got a young guy coming along like this making moves. This could be the future for a lot of guys, as we see pit stops now starting to happen as Alex Palou comes in for his first pit stop. So let's watch how this goes.
Palou in 4th at the time of pitting. By the way, need to update you. Tony Kanaan has disappeared from the race, and so too has Colton Herder. See if we can find out more on that for you as we watch Palou's first of 2 stops. I was
on a
Red
race,
Cross Grand Prix.
I was on a race this morning, the Legends race with Tony Kanaan, and he was actually helping me get the system set up. I've been up on the West Coast since 5 a.m. over at my friend's house, and we did a little race this morning before this race with Dario and myself and Tony and Max, and we had about 15 guys. It was a hell of a good time, and we got another little battle as
O'Ward and Kirkwood.
O'Ward is making the move back on Kirkwood, but I'm telling you, I'm starting to get hooked on this stuff, Townsend. I know that you just got yourself a unit for in your office. What? Whoa!
O'Ward, big moment, loses it with a tank slapper over the 4th curb in the bus stop, and Kirkwood now. O'Ward, I don't know if there's any Wood's car going. Now his wing is askew.
Yeah, his wing is on sideways. He's going to need to come in for repair. But what system did you get yourself set up with for you and your kids, Townsend?
Well, that's the problem, is 95% of the time it is my kid racing under my name. So there's a lot of pressure on Jackson to do well as we see a replay of this moment. O'Ward up the inside, going to the bus stop. Kirkwood to the outside. O'Ward has it here, just kind of overcooks it, gets way wide of the 3rd curb, grabs some grass, and it looks like Kirkwood might have lost his right front wing main plane and end fence there on the contact.
By the way, here is Jimmy Johnson up into the mix. He's now steadily made his way into 13th place and is right there behind Pato O'Ward. And again, this is good practice for us all to pick the difference between the 2 Arrow McLaren SP cars. O'Ward is all in black with the orange, and Oliver Askew, who's up in 5th place, we saw a little earlier, has some blue side skirts on the front and rear wings.
And O'Ward is all over the place with that damaged rear wing, trying to hang on. The thing is swirling all over the place like a forklift. He blocks to the inside, Johnson to the outside. Could have some more action here in the bus stop.
Yeah, he's going to go off again because he went sailing in there. Jimmy Johnson backed off wisely. So Jimmy Johnson up from 19th on the grid to 13th. So he's nice and steady, moving his way forward. Classic Jimmy Johnson, isn't it?
And he has had experience on this full course in sports car racing back with the Gainsco Pontiac sports car. Do you remember that? The Gainsco, the Red Dragon. He raced here in the Rolex Grand Am Series many years ago. Of course, a ton of experience on the shorter course in his Cup car. But this is good. And Alex Palou was right behind him. And remember, Palou has already... So Palou is running 9th now overall with that 1 pit stop to go. So he's had a great race. Jimmy runs a little wide.
I think he intentionally let him by because I don't think he's battling him for position as we see more cars coming in with damage. One of the Penske cars has damage. I don't know if that's McLaughlin who has damage as well.
Might be Rossi coming to pit lane as well.
Oh.
Love tap there. The crew's just kind of standing there like, hey, anybody want an ice cream?
So there we go. So McLaughlin is, and this is Jimmy Johnson in for his first stop of the race. Sage Karam, race leader, has a 2.5 second gap over Felix Rosenquist. It's been those two guys all race long, and Scott Speed running 3rd over Will Power and Oliver Askew. By the way, as we watch this sequence of stops, and this is Sage Karam, race leader, coming in, guys, one thing we haven't spoken about is this is the first time the 3 of us have had a chance to commentate on these cars with the new aero screen. And when we've had those onboard shots, it looks fine, looks great.
Yeah,
Well,
it takes
this
a
is-
little getting used to driving it in the sim, just with the big vertical member splitting down the middle of your windscreen there as Karam goes to the number 1 pit stall, and Will Power now takes the lead. Right now, Will Power, fastest lap of the race at a 25.8. Karam second at a 25.9. Rosenquist at a 26.0. So Will Power right now, the pace setter, trying to make up precious ground while Sage Karam is in pit lane.
Yeah, this is where we see Will Power at his best. How many times have we seen him stay out and run longer, get better fuel mileage than the other guys, and rip some qualifying laps off like he is right now? He ran a little bit wide there. You can tell, Townsend, he's trying to put down some laps to see if he can jump these guys on the pit exchange.
Now, one thing that we haven't mentioned, folks, is that there is no 5-time champion Scott Dixon in this race, no Takuma Sato. We mentioned no Ryan Hunter-Ray, no Charlie Kimball, no Marco Andretti, and no Jack Harvey. For most of those drivers, those renowned drivers that I've just mentioned, it is simply a shortage of equipment. And add Robert Wickens to that mix. Robert was trying desperately to make it in this race today. He will have a new rig, a full setup next week. And he will be ready to go. So remember, this is the first of 6 weeks. Next week is Barber Motorsports Park from Birmingham, Alabama, where we'll be racing as Will Power is in for his first stop. We caught a quick shot there of Graham Rahal before Will entering pit lane. Graham is doing great works for the United Rental Turn for Troops. We'll tell you more about that when we see him on track again, raising valuable money, charitable money in a great cause. But it's been a promising start for Will Power. And here comes Oliver Askew, who's been in the top 5 pretty much all race long.
Be interesting to see where Power blends out with Sage Karam and also with Askew and Palou. Remember, those guys were all battling earlier before the round of pit stops as we ride on board with Santino Ferrucci. What a great visual this is. It looks so accurate.
Sage Karam back to the lead as Power has come into the pits. Back on the Wickens situation, he was all set up to race in this thing and had a system coming together that was sponsored to him from somebody, and then that deal fell through for whatever reason. It all kind of fell apart, and then our friends over at Simcraft have stepped up, and they are giving Robert a full system to have at his house, and it's going to be the first step for him. Max Pappas is working on a steering wheel with hand controls for him to use initially, and then as he gets more rehab and more ability to use his legs, get stronger, he's going to start using the pedals. So this sim racing is the first step for him to working towards getting back in an IndyCar, and that's what everybody wants to see. So it's great for him to be involved in this.
By the way, we are going to just step away just for a moment. While the majority of this race is commercial free, we've got 2 breaks, just 2 quick breaks throughout the course of this race as we're edging closer and closer to the half race distance. And when we come back from this brief break, we will actually talk with Robert Wickens himself.
The American Red Cross urgently needs blood and platelet donations and asks all healthy donors to schedule an appointment to give now. With the coronavirus outbreak, it is important to maintain a sufficient blood supply. Your blood donation is critical and can help save lives. Please, schedule an appointment today. Download the Blood Donor app, visit redcrossblood.org, or call 1-800-RED-CROSS today. You can make a difference.
The American Red Cross Grand Prix here at Watkins Glen International. This is the first time we've gone iRacing INDYCAR Challenge style. And I know that you, like us, we've been desperate to experience some INDYCAR racing with this current coronavirus pandemic putting everything on hold, and we're trying to keep everybody around the world healthy as can be. This is a nice way to escape it just for a moment, isn't it? As we race lap 18 of 45. It's been a tremendous run from Sage Karam, Felix Rosenquist, Will Power, Scott Speed, Oliver Askew. Simon Pagenaud has recovered from that earlier crash. Pagenaud's doing good work. McLaughlin's trying to make his way back up there as well. And Alex Palou has had an encouraging run.
We are coming up, Townsend, on almost the halfway point of this race. This race is really flying by. These guys are not really making a lot of mistakes at the front. These guys are running quick laps, consistent, very little mistakes, which is key to winning this thing.
But they're pushing very hard, Paul. You can see there how hard Scott Speed is working to try to hang on to Will Power after he came out of the pits. And that car is
Dalton Kellett.
Dalton Kellett in the 41. He was all out of shape exiting the boot.
The nose looks like it's knocked off of that car. You can see the front of the nose is damaged, so he's hit something, but the front wings are intact. Look at the very front of the nose is black, so he's hit something as we see a car come out of the pits right in front of him. Looks like Zach Beach right there, who's just came out of the pits right in front of him. He's 3 laps down right now.
So we were talking about Robert Wickens before we went to that brief break. Robert is on the line right now, and when we go iRacing INDYCAR racing next week from Barber Motorsports Park, this man will be there. Hey Robert, how are you?
How you doing? I can see myself on TV. I can see myself on the phone. This is Inception.
So listen, we got so close to seeing you in this race today. I know there was a few little hiccups with your equipment, and Max Pappas tried to help out very generously with his MPI steering wheels. Unfortunately, it didn't get to you in time, but you're going to have a new rig, a new setup, and you'll be ready to go next week. That sounds great.
Yeah, we were so close. You know, everyone worked their butts off to get everything done for me to get on this race today. But unfortunately, couriers, we were at their discretion, and unfortunately, I got held up in Louisville, Kentucky, and the steering wheel didn't make it in time. So I am going to get it next week. I'm getting a system from Snipcraft coming next week as well. So hopefully I'll be up and running with lots of practice. I compete with these guys because this iRacing stuff's not easy. I mean, I like to think I'm a pretty good sim racer, but I've never done it with just my hands. So it's going to take a lot of practice.
Townsend, what have you got for Robert?
Lee, I unfortunately can't hear Robert, but tell him I said hi, Robert. We're glad you're going to be in the sim world here as soon as all the pieces come together for you. But love the inspiration for you, bud, on Instagram, on Twitter. I love every time we see an update. It gives me great inspiration to keep pushing.
No, well, thank you very much.
All right, we weren't aware that that PT and Townsend couldn't hear what Robert was saying, but thanks, Robert. Enjoy the rest of the race. Almost halfway there, and the Arrow McLaren SP youngsters, they're doing pretty well. That's Oliver Askew and Pato Award. Pato, of course, was involved in that incident a little earlier on. By the way, we are racing here at Watkins Glen. Next week is Barber, as we've mentioned. 3rd of the 6 races will be a driver's choice. Round 4 will be a random draw. Round 5 will be at Circuit of the Americas, Austin, Texas. And the 6th and final race in this iRacing INDYCAR Challenge. Now, INDYCAR has not chosen just exactly how this will happen, whether it will be with a fan vote, like you all did to get Watkins Glen victorious and to be the one chosen today, whether it be a fan vote or a driver vote. But this is pretty exciting, PT and Townsend, that the 6th and final round will be a non-INDYCAR track, and it will be a dream track. So, I mean, if it comes down to a driver vote, somebody like Scott McLaughlin could vote for Bathurst. If it's one of the Europeans, they could vote for Spa, or it doesn't matter. It's going to be a dream track that's going to be a non-INDYCAR regular track. So that's something to look forward to, something different as well.
I can imagine it's probably going to be Nürburgring, like the longest, most challenging, dangerous track that there is in the world. So that's the epic track for, I believe, every gamer and everybody that wants to go to Europe, Townsend, and drive a car in Europe.
Yeah, no doubt. The other thing that you'll see with this iRacing format, the oval races are so fantastic. I'd love to see them take the rear wing off, front wing off, go race at Talladega in these things, because the wheel-to-wheel action is really electrifying. When I do iRacing here at home and get on an oval race, a NASCAR or an INDYCAR race, it is high drama right away. And we're about to see high drama here as Will Power is making a move there on the slower car of Jimmy Johnson as they go into the bus stop.
Yeah, and he's got a bent front wing, guys. Look at that front wing is stuck way up in the air. So he's had contact with something. So a little bit of damage there, which could affect him, but still running good lap times. Karam is leading by 3.3 seconds. He really hasn't been able to get away from Rosenqvist that far. Power now is 9 seconds behind, but he's got a little bit of damage. Scott Speed is right now caught up to the back of Will Power. He's 1 second behind, so Scott Speed moving forward.
Such a great perspective here. The movement of the hands, I know you're looking at something that's virtual, but it is absolutely determined by what Scott Speed is doing right now at home on the simulator. So the smoothness of his hands and how deliberate he's able to turn, and you see very little counter correction. Just as I say
you spoke too soon. You jinxed it.
He must be listening to the broadcast. Sorry, Scott.
He gets a reset there, and we'll be back out on track momentarily, but that's one of 2 resets only.
See, that front wing of Will Powers is up there in the air. He's still, like I said, he's turning good laps, and he's all by himself, so he can just concentrate on his driving. He's closed down a little bit now. He's down to 8 seconds behind Rosenqvist. Rosenqvist is 3.5 behind the leader, Sage Karam.
And further back, that Team Penske battle between Pagenaud, McLaughlin, and Newgarden. And McLaughlin, just as I say that, made a move on Simon Pagenaud. Now Newgarden's going to try to do his best to close up to that 22 Menards car.
Is this a battle for who's going to get the seat in the future, Lee? What do you think?
Well, I think he's going to ruffle a few feathers, I'm sure. Let's go back and have a look at what happened to Scott Speed here. This is the car, the 98, that Marco Andretti would normally pilot. This is what happened to Scott.
Let me tell you what happened, Lee. What happened is that Scott was hypnotized.
He was a little bit wide of the line, out in the gray a little bit, got on the power, and he just lost the rear, and it spun to the inside. So just a little bit offline, and I tell you, these things are like driving the real thing. You got to be in the black groove right there. If you're outside of the groove, you're going for a ride.
Sage Karam in the Wix Filters car for Dry and Reinbold Racing. He was meant to do originally at least 3 races in the 2020 NTT IndyCar Series. With the amended schedule, we'll wait and see how that suits DRR. But I'm pretty sure you can bank on seeing Sage Karam at the Indianapolis 500 for sure. Riding with Chip Ganassi Racing's Felix Rosenqvist in the NTT data entry. And this guy is a bit of a sim expert, and he has done extremely well in this race. And he's within 3.5 seconds of Sage Karam.
Look at the consistency, Townsend. 26.6, 27.2, 26.5 with traffic. Incredibly consistent.
Yeah, it's hard to do, especially without having that last little bit. The final frontier on this is just being able to feel the front tires, I find, and feel where the threshold of the grip is. And the more you do it, the better you get. And with Rosenqvist, he's been doing it for so long, it just comes as naturally as the real thing for Rosenqvist. As I think that is Askew. No, sorry, that's Award coming out of the final corner with Pagenaud.
Yep. Pagenaud fighting
all over the back of him. Pagenaud's going to get wide here, way wide.
Yeah, he went for big exit speed. I don't know if it paid off for him because he lost a little bit of ground to Award as he climbs up through the S's to the top of the hill, flattens out here pretty dramatically, and you run down to the bus stop at 190 miles an hour and then into the bus stop, Townsend, at nearly 140 miles an hour.
And really, look at Award just turning in with authority at 150 miles an hour there to the entrance. Now you're going to go through the downhill here, enter the boot. If you're in NASCAR, you're going to continue right. This is the IndyCar track downhill into the laces, and now we'll head to the toe. Up through the gears, up to 5th gear. You're going to bang 2, probably 3 downshifts here to 2nd or 3rd gear. Driver's option, and really driver's option on the line as Pagenaud opts to stay inside, and Award can do the rim shot ride the outside and stay off the concrete patch. This is the heel of the boot, and then you'll exit back out to this final left-hander that's really slow, tricky because grip is very slow. It's kind of off camber, and back for the final 2 very fast corners, both 4th gear, almost flat.
And Townsend, you know how you said the comparison there, you'd stay right to go to the NASCAR track. This is the INDYCAR track. I spoke with Watkins Glen International President Michael Printup this morning, and he just said, I am so thrilled that the fans voted us to be the track to kick off this iRacing INDYCAR Challenge as Pagenaud drifts a little wide out of one again. There were 8 tracks that started in the bracket format. There was Sonoma, Watkins Glen, Sebring, Montreal, Motegi, Auto Club Speedway Fontana, Milwaukee Mile and Michigan, and obviously it all came down to Watkins Glen versus Michigan, and the Glen won out. Michael Printup said he would really like to get together with Roger Penske, Mark Miles, Jay Fry, the series, and talk about how he can get INDYCAR back on the permanent NTT INDYCAR Series calendar, because he said to me, this is an INDYCAR track.
Yeah, this is a fantastic track for sim racing because it's super fast, Townsend, in real life. I mean, it's a super high commitment, but the nice thing on a sim is that the corners you can see around the corners. They're all pretty fast and flowing. There's not a lot of blind stuff, so learning this track on a sim is actually not too difficult compared to some of the other tracks like street courses and places like Laguna that have a lot of blind corners.
Well, Watkins Glen falls into that library of circuits that around the world are universally loved, and it's because they're natural terrain road courses. This thing follows the natural topography of the rolling hills in this part of New York, and elevation change is what I think really makes a great racetrack, and not fabricated, where it naturally follows, drops down into the valley here. Now it's going to climb out of the valley up to the top as Pagenaud looks to try to make something happen. Let's see if he gets a good enough toe here, Paul. What will Award do? Does he get defensive and go to the inside? It looks like he's gonna. He's
gonna have to, because Pagenaud's got the run and Award's moving around. He goes for the outside. Will he stick it on the outside? No. Award goes flying into the chicane. He runs wide.
Whoa.
Almost in the grass.
That's what almost brought him unstuck before when he was in that battle several laps ago, but Award able to hang on to it. So Sage Karam, Felix Rosenquist, Will Power is third, Oliver Askew, Scott McLaughlin, Santino Ferrucci, Al Kirkwood. How about that grouping of fresh young names to IndyCar Series racing? And then this fight here, Pato Award and the reigning Indy 500 champion, Simon Pagenaud. Right behind him is the series champ, Joseph Newgarden, and then Kyle Kaiser.
I'm telling you guys, I don't see anything different in this sim race that we could see at our first race when we finally get to go and do that when the schedule permits. I mean, I don't see anything different that might happen.
I agree, Paul. If you look at the names right now as they run, it would be no surprise to see these guys at the top. Maybe Sage Karam, just because he's been out of it full time. He's running with a small team on a limited schedule this year. But from Rosenquist, on down through the top 10, I guess you got Kyle Kirkwood in there as well, but you've got a lot of big names that we would expect to run up front. Scott McLaughlin has tested so well with Team Penske at Sebring and a few other tracks. They've been really impressed with him. So the pace really reflects the commitment and the ability for what we're watching right here.
I'm hearing that on that McLaughlin stop, fellas, that he did not do a full fill, and he will be stopping again in about 2-3 laps. So watch for McLaughlin to come to pit road. And PT, you mentioned about when we do go back to racing on track, car came out with a revised schedule for 2020. The first race to get us going will be the doubleheader, the duel in Detroit on the streets of Belle Isle, and that's Saturday, May 30 and Sunday, May 31. So fingers crossed, health and world health permitting, we will be there and get racing for real. And again, the Indy 500 and the Grand Prix of Indianapolis, the month of May has been shaken up and shifted, and the Indy 500 will occur later this year on Sunday, August 23 for the Indy 500. For the man all in yellow there to try and defend his Indy 500 title.
Hey, Paul, I got a question for you. I was talking to Will Power about the fact that this race, as you know, the drivers were not allowed to make any setup changes to the car, so everybody's running the exact same platform. And Will Power suggested, hey, what if we did that all the time as we ride on board with Will Power in the real thing? What if it was the exact same car? Because look at what a young driver like Sage Karam is able to do, absolutely walking away from the field here in equal equipment. What could Sage Karam do if he was in an identical car to Will Power in the regular IndyCar series week in and week out?
Well, I mean, it would be awesome if you could do that, but I don't think it would be great. I think we need that adjustability. We need to allow guys to work on their cars. But in this sim racing, in this downtime, a lot of these drivers, like Will Power, he's got a wife and he's got kids. A lot of these guys don't have time to sit on the computer all day. It's been said that Rosenqvist had done thousands of laps of testing. He's been racing all winter long on a sim, spends 6 to 8 hours a day on the sim, so fine-tuning his car and his equipment at home and all of his computer to really make his car really quick. And they wanted to let these guys come in and give everybody the same thing and let it all be up to the driver, which I think is a great thing for this.
Looking at the gap from first to second, and that's Kyle Kaiser trapped in the middle there, not on the lead lap. So the gap from first to second, 3.5 seconds. That's been pretty steady. Back to this man here, Felix Rosenqvist. Townsend, Paul, your thoughts on this very talented Swedish driver who was denied his first IndyCar win last year at Mid-Ohio by just narrowest of margins. And what hurt even more is that it was his teammate, Scott Dixon, who did it. He thought he was so close. I think there's no more black holes for this guy. I think he's going to be spectacular this year when racing resumes for real.
I totally agree, Diff. I think the exception is going to be what happens when we get to Indianapolis, now rescheduled for August, as you mentioned, because that's where things didn't go very well for Rosenqvist last year. Had the crash in practice, a big eye-opener for him, big hit at Indy. Every driver has their first hit, and that really set Rosenqvist back at a critical part of the season where he was a little unsure on his future. So for me, I totally agree. Everywhere we go, Rosenqvist is going to be a factor, except when we get to those big ovals like Indy, like Texas. How does he continue the learning process? Because that's where he still has a few boxes to tick, in my opinion, to really round out his IndyCar skill set.
Yeah, he got off to a little bit of a shaky start. Oh, is that
Award went wide.
Award ran wide, so Pagano picks up another position. He's been putting the pressure on Award for a while, but Award is coming back. But back to Felix. He got off to a little bit of a rocky start last year, and things kind of came to a head at Indy when he had a big crash there, and he's had a sideways eye looking at him from Chip Ganassi. But after Indy, he really came good and had a great second half of the year and had a great finish to the season. So I look for him. If he doesn't get in the winner's circle, I'd be very surprised.
There's the replay of
drifted
Award.
wide.
Big catch from Award, great car control, but it gave up the position to Pagano, and now Award's right back on the gearbox of the 22.
So we're past the halfway point now, 31 laps out of 45. Still got a little bit of ways to go. We got another pit stop to come. All the guys inside the top 10 have not had any incidences or crashes. You see the guys from Kaiser on down, Daly, 12th, they've all had some type of contact and have gotten down a lap or 2 laps. So this is going to get interesting with one more stop to go and coming down to 10 laps to go.
By the way, we have been remiss not to mention James Hinchcliffe, our new NBC Sports colleague, who will do an abbreviated season this year, but also working with us as well. Hinch there was a technical glitch, and Hinch's car didn't actually turn up in the system, and he was unable to start this race. But we'll catch up with him shortly. We'll have a chat with him like we have done with Robert Wickens during the course of this race. Tony Kanaan is out, Sebastian Bourdais is out, and Colton Herter is also out of this race. But there are plenty more to make up for it. Another 5 races this style, iRacing INDYCAR Challenge, 5 more to go, which is going to be fantastic and a real variety of circuits that we will experience as well. You know, Jimmy Johnson is doing well. He's up in 15th place. Jimmy said yesterday, as the race leader, Sage Karam, is in, Jimmy said, look, I made a real meal of it last weekend in the NASCAR iRacing event. He said, I need to be better at this. There he is. Jimmy's just exiting pit road there on the left-hand side in the Ally car. And he said, I need to be better at this, as the first and second place cars are mirroring each other on pit stop strategy. This is going to be super tight. This is going to be really interesting if Rosenqvist can turn up the heat a little bit on Sage Karam as Johnson is climbing up through the S's. Will we see Jimmy Johnson make his real NTT IndyCar Series debut this year by doing the double? Graham Rahal challenged him on Twitter saying, come on, Jimmy, now that the Grand Prix of Indianapolis is at the same place on the same weekend as the Brickyard 400, why not make your IndyCar debut? And Jimmy told me in an interview for NBCSports.com yesterday, maybe, we'll see. He might have to get permission from, no, not might, he will have to get permission from all fronts, but he will see if it's able to be done. Wouldn't that be something to look forward to?
For the leaders, it's going to be back to cold tires as they come out after this mandatory pit stop. These guys are going to be heavier on fuel than they were before. They're going to have cold tires, so Townsend, it takes about a lap for these things to get back up to temperature.
Yeah, and the big risk for Karam and for Rosenqvist is not catching any lap traffic at the wrong time. At this track, as fast as it is, if you have to check up at a corner like the bus stop,
late entry for Power.
Yeah, Power sending it to pit lane, but that's the issue for the leaders, is not catching any lap traffic at the wrong time. You can lose a ton of time here at Watkins Glen in those moments.
The other thing, too, is you don't want to speed on pit lane. You'll get a penalty for that as well, so got to be careful getting in. Will Power came in with big speed. Normally, you would have to stay inside that yellow line right there and be committed to the pit lane, but he was in the line and then peeled it off into the pits. As we see, Rosenqvist is here. Did he get into the lead?
It looks like Sage Karam is still leading on my timing and scoring.
Yes, I think Karam's still out in front.
By about 3.1 seconds.
Yeah, Sage has been able to he pulled out that lead of about 2.5 seconds in the first couple laps. And Townsend, he's really just been able to just maintain that and not really overwork his car.
So, guys, we need to just step away just briefly for the second and final break, but it'll be like the last one. It'll just be 30 seconds. We'll go non-stop. You won't miss any of the action. Racing lap 33 of 45, 12 to go here at the Glen. Back in a moment.
The American Red Cross urgently needs blood and platelet donations and asks all healthy donors to schedule an appointment to give now. With the coronavirus outbreak, it is important to maintain a sufficient blood supply. Your blood donation is critical and can help save lives. Please, schedule an appointment today. Download the Blood Donor app, visit redcrossblood.org, or call 1-800-RED-CROSS today. You can make a difference.
Racing to the end here now in the American Red Cross Grand Prix. It's the first of 6 races in the iRacing INDYCAR Challenge, and the Wix Filters Dallara for Dry and Reinbold Racing. Sage Karam has done just an amazing job in this race. He has a pretty healthy percentage of winning too. When he's done iRacing road course races, he's won nearly a third of the races he has started. So this guy, this young American who has had his IndyCar career. Oh, Jimmy Johnson with a big one, exiting the inner loop, the bus stop.
And I tell you what, if Sage was any closer to that, he could have been involved in that. As now he comes up on Graham Rahal, who he's going to have to put a lap down. And we'll see if Graham fights him for this position. Graham Rahal's already 1 lap down, so he'll be going down 2 to save
and Graham Rahal's last
out of the
lap,
way.
Paul 28.7 for Rahal. Karam was a 26.5, so Karam a full 2 seconds quicker. There he gets by. Karam gets by Rahal, so can get back to the pace. So that could have been really costly for Karam with Rosenqvist closing as Graham has a big moment in that final left-hander out of the boot.
Yeah, we're coming up now on 10 laps to go, Lee, and any one of these guys that you're lapping that is less experienced at iRacing as Karam is, because obviously he's a pro at this, you could run yourself into trouble. So you got to be very careful of who you come up on and at what point you want to pass them. But you can't afford to lose any time because Felix is still not very far behind.
And that's a really valid point, PT, that you make about the level of experience at sim racing, because Graham Rahal in the United Rentals entry on screen, he's one of those guys who was piecing it together this week, does not have a great depth of experience in iRacing or sim racing, and got his equipment late like a lot of the drivers. And that's why some of the regular drivers, names like Dixon and Sato and Hunter Ray and Jack Harvey, Mike Shank told me that Jack Harvey will be back next week in the Meyer Shank entry to race at Barber Motorsports Park. And then you look at guys like Rosenqvist and Sage Karam with a lot different level of experience. Jeff. Here is the Johnson crash, T-Bell.
Johnson gets into the bus stop there, wide of the third apex, big moment, tries to gather it up, but just way too wide out in the gray and loses the back end. Pretty heavy contact for the Ally Chevy there.
So gap is at an even 3 seconds now. Karam to Rosenquist, and Karam goes through, heading up to turn 11, final corner, and with 11 to go. This has been a rock-solid performance.
Yeah, he's picked up about a half a second on Sage, and I think that gap is closing as he crosses the start-finish line this time, 3.1. So that lap lost a tenth of a second, Downs, and that's how close it is between these guys. It's just been seesawing back and forth. Last lap, 126.3, so he's getting quicker and quicker. 26.1 was his last lap.
The consistency is remarkable. Quickest lap of the race, Power still at a 25.8, Rosenquist at a 26.0. But what blows my mind is here we are, almost 40 laps into this race, and Rosenquist and Karam have not put a wheel wrong, and the consistency is crazy. I can't do 3 laps, Paul, without going for a ride now. I've got a lot of work to put in before I would even be able to hang on even at the back of this field. So it takes a lot of work, a real commitment, not unlike the real thing. And Rosenquist and Karam clearly the class of the field today.
Well, it's the same in real life, isn't it, Townsend? You can only get about 3 laps before you have an incident.
There's the first punch of the year. So we promised you earlier in the show that we would we'd check in with our new NBC Sports colleague, James Hinchcliffe, the mayor of Hinchtown. He is on the line. Hey, Hinch, unfortunately you didn't get to go racing today, mate.
Yeah, no, that one didn't go quite as planned. That was like, akin to having your throttle stick in pit lane before you got to go, start the race. That was pretty unfortunate.
Yeah, I had the same thing happen this morning. I got up at like 5 in the morning to do the Legends race and I did all the practice for 2 hours and qualified 10th. And then there was some glitch and I got booted off the system. And then I was sitting there ready to go and I wasn't in the race, and it's so frustrating.
It is. I mean, you put in all these hours. I mean, to be fair, I didn't put in quite as many hours as some of these guys. I heard Joseph was up till about 4 o'clock the other morning getting some laps in. But still, to put in the time you did, and you amp yourself up, you get into it. It's the kind of the first race of the year. It's not the same, but it's still very cool. And everything that INDYCAR and iRacing has done to make this happen is awesome. And it's been fun to watch. It just sucks that I wasn't able to be a part of it.
So for the guys out there, what's your system? What do you use?
So I'm the worst guy to ask that question because I don't actually have one. I'm borrowing a friend's, and so I can tell you. I know it's got Fanatec wheel and pedals. Mine hasn't. My stuff hasn't come in yet. I've got something coming. I realize I've got to kind of join the party here and get my own setup. But for the moment, my friend Brian and his wife Katie have been very accommodating and staying 6 feet away, but letting me come into their house to occupy their office for a couple hours a day for the last week.
We spoke about the difference in experience levels, James, and you're looking at Sage Karam, who holds a pretty healthy lead over Felix Rosenquist. Will Power doing well. Also, you were very open earlier in the week, just saying, look, I'm one of the newbies at this. Kind of Alexander Rossi, Graham Rahal. There's guys who are kind of in the new division of this, or the department, if you wish. How difficult is it to get up to speed and to feel competent and fast?
Yeah, it's monumentally challenging because, there's nothing that quite replicates the feeling of the car underneath you, and so learning all the tips and tricks, there are certain things that, physics-wise just don't work or make any sense whatsoever in the real world that find you lap time in the sim world. And so the guys that have, pounded around lap after lap, hour after hour, figuring that stuff out, they definitely have an advantage. But I got to give Sage a ton of credit. Felix, a lot of these guys, Santino, who are a little more experienced. We got a group chat going and have been answering a lot of questions and giving guys tips and tricks and helping everybody out because we all want everybody up to speed because it makes the racing better and puts on a better show for the fans. So, I'm happy to see Sage running up front and Felix, those guys, like I said, they kind of helped everybody else out trying to get up to speed. But man, it's a commitment. It takes time to figure this stuff out and to be good and be consistently good at it.
So the sixth and final round, we're waiting to find out whether it's going to be a driver's choice, a driver's vote, or a fan's vote, but it's going to be a non-IndyCar track, and it's going to be like a dream track globally. What would be your choice?
Bathurst.
Having experienced it for real.
Having done it for real, and PT, you and I talked about how incredible that place was, and while we were there, I said, man, I would love to bring an IndyCar here and see what it can do. I mean, it's just such a cool track. Trust me, there are others that would be fun, but most guys haven't been here, so at least Alex and I would have a bit of an advantage.
Yeah, that's a tough track on a sim, too. I think I crashed on there about 1,000 times till I could put 5 laps together. So in real life, amazing track. So you've got a gem down there, Diffie.
Yeah, it is. It's truly spectacular. I asked Scott McLaughlin the same question earlier today, and he's like, "Oh, that'd be interesting. I'm not sure I could get an IndyCar around Bathurst." But we'll see. He's putting pressure. He's putting plenty of pressure on Oliver Askew. Askew's made a nice start, hasn't he? He's showing that he's pretty good at this sim racing.
He certainly has. I mean, I know he's partnered up with a company down there in Florida, and he's got a whole set up in their office there, and it's 3 screens and spotters and engineers and the whole bit. So he's definitely approaching it the right way, a very professional approach, but he's doing a great job. I mean, kid's obviously very talented, running fourth at the moment, and if he can hold off McLaughlin here, it'd be a great finish for him.
Well, thanks very much for your time, mate. Sorry you didn't get into the system today, but we look forward to talking about you next week from Barber Motorsports Park. And who would have thought that our first broadcast together would have been not on NBC, but on iRacing?
That's so true. That's so true. We'll get back to the real stuff at some point later this year.
All right, mate. Thanks very much. James Hinchcliffe there. We look forward to seeing him not only in an NBC Sport shirt, but also back in an IndyCar this year. Of course, he's going to be doing several events, including the Indianapolis 500. The white and red shell car there for Team Penske is Scott McLaughlin, the 2-time and defending Supercars champion from Australia, as he is putting the pressure on. Here comes the Kiwi now, up through the S's. He is all over Oliver Askew.
He's got the big draft. He got the exit coming out side by side down to the bus stop. He's going to be clear, Townsend, by the time they get to the brake zone.
No problem. Smooth sailing for Scott McLaughlin. He is clear, and now he has his sights on Will Power, who's way up the road, 30-some-odd seconds in front of McLaughlin, but a brilliant move. Very patient driving today, and now he's going to see if he can string together some pace with only 6 laps to go. Anything is possible.
He's got Dalton Kellick and Zach Veach up ahead. Go ahead, PT.
5 to go. The leaders have crossed the line. The tightest battle right now on track is Karam and Rosenquist. So I really feel, guys, that this is going to come down to the last couple laps. Rosenquist is starting to claw it back. He's now 2.8 seconds behind. So things are tightening up at the front.
The last winner here in real NTT IndyCar Series competition was Alexander Rossi. Alexander openly admits he's on a steep learning curve in this sim racing world. He's down in 17th position, just behind Jimmy Johnson. Final 5 laps here at Watkins Glen International in the American Red Cross Grand Prix, the first of 6 races in this format before we go racing for real. But I think we're going to hear from the drivers. They'll say they treated this racing very real, very serious. Santino Ferrucci on the right-hand side of your screen there in the Sealmaster number 18. He told us earlier this week that it just feels weird being dressed in the Sealmaster colours and seeing his car number as 18, because that, of course, was so identifiable with Sebastian Bourdais. But he learned a lot from the 4-time champion last year, and we'll take that into the 2020, the abbreviated 2020 season. And he runs in a good spot. This will be an 8th place finish. If he can hang on to that, maybe he might be able to make up some ground on Joseph Newgarden. Who knows? This is race leader, though, Sage Karam, and he's taken that lead back out closer to 3 seconds with 4 laps to go now.
And this is the challenge for Karam. He's got Rosenquist, closing behind. Ferrucci trying to stay on the lead lap. Will Ferrucci help Karam at all here in the closing stages? Because Karam can easily start to lose a second half a lap. Ferrucci's quickest time a 27.3, Karam a 25.9. So this is important. What will Ferrucci do?
Ferrucci looks like he's moving over. No, he's going to fight a little bit. Karam's got to be careful here because this gap is closing now. Ferrucci's slow through the apex. Karam's going to dive to the inside.
That gets Karam clear. The gap has now dropped to 2.7 seconds to Rosenquist. You see Rosenquist just exit the boot there in the blue NTT car.
Hey guys, talk about close calls. Let's take you back and show you a replay. Kyle Kirkwood in the DHL Andretti entry. Up ahead of Sage Karam. Watch this. This is exiting the boot. And it's all going to happen here in turn 10.
Kirkwood gets on the apex curve there. That apex curve really kind of lays down like a skinny sausage, and you can really disrupt the car.
That could have been a huge moment for Sage Karam with that accident right in front of him, and the gap is closing now down to 2.6, but he's got some clear sailing for a little bit as Rosenquist has to deal with Santino.
He actually said this week, Paul, that you are allowed to call him the nickname that you bestowed upon him unofficially of Santucci. He said he's happy to go with like a Madonna, Rihanna first name, just one name basis. So you can call him Santucci if you want.
Got some traffic up in front with 3 to go now. Sage is now catching up on the back of one of the Penske cars. I believe it's Newgarden, who's probably going to fight Townsend to try to stay on the lead lap, at least for bragging rights, you would think, right?
Right. Well, remember at, St. Louis last year in the closing laps where Ferrucci and Newgarden had a big exchange of words in the close. I think it was the final lap, wasn't it, Lee, where Ferrucci almost got into Newgarden there in turn 4.
Newgarden just said you don't. He took exception with the fact he said you don't race like that, on an oval towards the end. Meanwhile, let's enjoy this ride with Felix Rosenquist.
Beautiful move to the outside into the bus stop. Clear sailing ahead now for Rosenquist. Head down, see what he can do with 2 laps to go.
Second last time into the boot is Sage Karam as he gets around Alexander Rossi in the Auto Nation entry. And he's driving to the white flag in the American Red Cross Grand Prix here at Watkins Glen. What an enjoyable afternoon it's been. It's been a new experience for us all, but a really great start. Getting used to what the onboard shots look like with the new aero screen, the new color scheme, some new drivers to the series. And for a lot of these guys who aren't regular sim racers, it's been a new experience for them as well. And they'll take that to Barber Motorsports Park next weekend.
And also huge validation for the Small Dryer Reinbold team out of Indianapolis running a part-time schedule. They've had a lot of faith in Sage Karam the last few years, and he's rewarding that faith, showing that in equal equipment, what he can do against the best in the sport. And also for Wix Filters, Paul, you've driven that Wix Filters car in the past. They've been a long-time IndyCar sponsor. This is a fun day for that whole group.
Yeah, great quality product. I actually use those filters myself on my toys and sand cars, so great to see them staying involved in the sport. Obviously, they've been involved in other forms of racing, Global Rallycross. They've been a long-time sponsor of Dennis Reinbold, so it's good to see them staying involved.
And look at what Oliver Askew's been able to do in the top screen, the larger box. Askew, the young American, has been able to regroup, and is now taking the fight back to the New Zealander, Scott McLaughlin. Final lap, less than 3.5 miles to go for Sage Karam as he's clearing his way, climbing the hill out of the boot. A little bit of traffic up ahead. Kyle Kaiser and Simon Pagenaud. There's been just a beautiful run for this man here. Bottom right of your screen. He was tipped as one of the ones to watch because of his history and his experience and his amazing results in iRacing competition. He's up behind Joseph Newgarden there. Newgarden who's 7th, so that's pretty good. Lapping all the way up to there for Sage Karam. Final corner, final time. Checkered flag is out. The Dryer and Reinbold driver wins the American Red Cross Grand Prix at Watkins Glen. The iRacing IndyCar Challenge. is won by the young American. Phenomenal performance for Sage Karam. He's been on the podium before in real IndyCar competition, but this is a win in iRacing IndyCar Challenge form. Terrific stuff. The 25-year-old from Pennsylvania.
Just think about it, Paul. After 45 laps, Sage Karam effectively caught Joseph Newgarden at the tail of that lap. So that's a full lap in outright pace on the 2019 champion. Great job.
I'm telling you, this is a confidence game, and even this is not the real thing, this builds your confidence as a driver, and hopefully this can translate this year in on-track activity that we're going to get going at after soon when we get back to racing. This is the kind of stuff that these guys really thrive on to get better.
And Sage Karam had never raced here in IndyCar or Indy Lights competition. So that's a nice little victory to get in this first of 6 races. 3 different teams represented in those top 3 positions. Dreyer and Reinbold racing over Chip Ganassi Racing and Team Penske. Sage Karam, Felix Rosenquist, and Will Power. Well, that was a nice start, fellas, wasn't it?
Oh, it was awesome. It's great entertainment. I was really surprised, Townsend, at how competitive it was inside the top 10. And, the top 10 guys were all very close in terms of lap time.
Yeah, I'd agree. And what really blew me away again was the lack of mistakes. You really didn't see the big moments that I expected with everybody doing this for the first time against each other in this sort of format in equal equipment. I thought we'd see more overdriving, and I was really impressed with how composed everybody was, how precise the execution was. And for Sage Karam and his team, what a great day it is to come out of this on top. The first race, really, of 2020.
There's a lot of stories to tell as you walk all the way down through the field. Who had incidents, who didn't, whose races finished prematurely, and in the case of James Hinchcliffe, didn't even get going. Tony Kanaan and Sebastian Bourdais were a couple to bounce out pretty early on, and so too Colton Herta. So we'll gather up those stories and regroup next weekend at Barber Motorsports Park, which will also be very exciting. But it's going to be busy, not the wide open spaces like here at the Glen next weekend. So I think you're going to see quite a bit of action there as well. The guys at the back there, Scott Speed, we didn't quite catch up with what happened to him, and he was running in such a promising fashion within the top 5. Super start in the number 98 US Concrete, Andretti Dallara. So we'll follow up on that story for you as well. So we can check in with the race winner. How about that? Pole position to victory lane and a win by 3.5 seconds is Sage Karam. Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks. It was nerve-wracking for sure there at the end.
Well, how about that incident with Kyle Kirkwood when he spun right in front of you coming out of turn 10? Nice job on missing him.
Yeah, that was a little too close for comfort. Definitely a Code Brown moment. But yeah, I didn't know which way he was going to go when he was starting to spin, so I had to quick rely on some instincts, and I picked left, and thankfully it was the right choice. But yeah, that was a little too close.
So what's your general take on the whole race? Just racing with IndyCar regulars now. How do you think the conduct of everybody was? What do you think about the pace? What do you think about your performance? How was the day?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was great. I think, the guys committed pretty well to this week. I mean, we had practice rooms up every day all week. So, I'm surprised the guys put in the amount of time they did. And it was a lot of fun. And it's just great that we can be able to, give the fans something to watch. And, it's the only sport that we can really do it right now. And, I'm happy that I got the win for Wicks and Dreyer and Reinbold Racing. The car, looks pretty good up front. So hopefully when we get back to real racing, we can replicate that.
Here, for the fans out there and the kids that are watching today and want to get into this, we've been asking guys, what's their equipment? So what do you use, and what's your preference? Because obviously you're very good at this.
Thanks, Paul. So I have just like an 80/20 aluminum rig by Huskenveld. I have the Huskenveld Ultimate pedals, VRS, direct drive steering wheel. I run triple monitors. and I custom built my computer by myself. I actually just built it right after Christmas. So yeah, I've been at this for a while. I do some league races in the Lionheart League, and they actually raced here this past week, so I got a good practice with that. Those guys always push me. I'm a big iRacing fan and have been on the service now for a while, and it's just a lot of fun for me and keeps me busy.
Townsend, what have you got for our race winner?
Well, I was just busy trying to write down all the specs there, Sage. They came rapid fire, so I need to know what to order. But hey, great job, and hopefully you're going to get a call soon here from your team owner, Dennis Reinbold, who's taken a bigger swing this year with you and going to run some part-time road races. I know, in addition to the Indy 500. You've had a lot of confidence put in you by Dennis the last few years, and it's rare the young driver gets those opportunities with a team owner that absolutely loves what you're about and is committed to you year after year. What's that relationship been like, and what do you see going forward in terms of your partnership with DRR?
Yeah, I mean, you've drove for Dennis before, and I'm sure you can attest that he is one of the most loyal, down-to-earth, greatest guys in motorsports. And I've been with their team now, I believe, 6 years, and it's great that we can, get more races this year. And obviously it was a shame we didn't get going in St. Pete, because we were all looking forward to that and worked really hard, a lot of years to make that happen. So I can't thank them enough for sticking with me. Great partner in Wicks. The car always looks great. All the guys at the shop are just amazing guys. It's like a family atmosphere there. Love them to death. And just thank you to them for keeping this dream alive. They're the reason why I'm able to do this race today. So thank you to them. And then also I got to thank my sim team, Kiwanda Sim Sport. Those guys push me every single day, keep me sharp on the sim, and my buddy Damon Martinez, who spotted for me today.
Is he cracking the whip on the training front? You're still staying fit and healthy and strong?
Trying to, we can't really do anything right now. The gyms are all shut down, but I got a bike and set it up on the Zwift app. Kanan talked me into that, and Kanan and Veach, they're all riding now, so trying to do something to stay in shape, for when we can go back to racing. I'm ready to roll.
Hey, now it might be in the virtual world or the iRacing world, but you have just won an INDYCAR race at Watkins Glen International. That sounds pretty good, doesn't it?
Yeah, it sounds good. I wish it was a real thing, but I'll take this for now. Hopefully, hopefully this can lead to something, and I just really hope the fans enjoyed it and the sponsors are happy about it, and it was a good show because we had a lot of fun with it, and I'm just excited and ready to go for the next one.
Well done. Congratulations. There he is, Sage Karam, the race winner of the American Red Cross Grand Prix at Watkins Glen. You'll see Sage and his dry and ride mold Wicks filters Delara next weekend at Barber Motorsports Park, which should bring more excitement. Guys, what's your take on that, on the switch from Watkins Glen to Barber? Actually, we'll get back to that in just a moment, because I'm pleased to say we've got the runner-up in today's American Red Cross Grand Prix. That is Chip Ganassi Racing's Felix Rosenquist. Well done, Felix. Great result.
Thanks. That was a long and sweaty race. Good fun. It was hard to catch Sage. I think that was a very deserved win for him. I tried to take advantage of some lapping from the cars behind, but he always seemed to get through the traffic even better. So, runner-up it is.
Because you got within a couple of seconds of him.
I don't know. He seemed to have it pretty much under control. It seemed like I could do some quick lap times here and there, but then I would sort of overheat my tires, and then I would have a couple of laps slower, and it just kind of went in that cycle. So he could always respond to my lap times, and I think he just had something more than I had.
Saying that you've got about 58,000 laps of experience on iRacing. Is that true?
Not really, man. I don't know why everyone think I have, but I basically started doing iRacing seriously this winter, but honestly, I haven't been on it that much. But yeah, it's good fun, and it's nice when you can give the fans a bit of a show, and also to give us drivers a bit of, getting the rust away in the brakes. So yeah, it's good fun.
It's Paul. For the fans out there and everybody that's watching, the kids that all want to get into this, I've been asking guys, what's your setup? What are you running? So that the kids out there that are watching that want to get into this and get in iRacing and get in some leagues, they can get the right equipment.
I mean, right now I have a very serious rig. I wouldn't recommend buying this for starter, but until this year, I ran a Logitech G25. I think it's from 2007 or something, and I just had it attached to my desk, and I had the pedals on the floor and a normal IKEA chair, and that honestly worked really well. So I think the good thing with e-racing is that you can get into it for a very low price tag. I mean, if you already have a computer, maybe you can spend another $500-600 to get decent stuff, and then if you want to get you can spend as much as you want, to be honest. There's rigs for above 30 grand, but it doesn't really make you quicker. I think it's just in the details. But yeah, it's a good way of getting into motorsports.
Paul, there's grown men around the country that keep hearing you say, hey, tell the kids out there what they can do to get into this. I think there's plenty of guys, very mature gentlemen that would love to burn many hours a day doing this. It's a blast, and so open to all ages, I'd like to point out.
Felix, well done. Congratulations on that. Look forward to seeing you next week at Barber. What do you think about the tighter confines of Barber Motorsports Park up against today's wide open spaces of the Glen?
Love this track. I haven't raced here in reality, but I mean, this track has such a nice flow to it. I haven't tried any other track yet in the INDYCAR, so let's see how Barber compares. But yeah, I mean, that's also a lovely circuit. So I think anything should be good, really. Whatever makes the race better, it will be good.
Mate, congratulations on that runner-up. Go get the victory next week. Go and de-sweat. Go and grab a drink and relax. Good work today.
Thanks, bro. Have a good one.
PT and Townsend, it is almost time to say farewell to the viewers. Paul, let's start with you. What just overall your thoughts on today?
Well, I thought it was great. I mean, this is the wave of the future. I think you're going to see a lot of this that's going to go on from here out. I think really this is a start to something that's new, and you're going to see this, in the winters to come when the racing's over. I think you're going to be, in pro INDYCAR leagues, in pro NASCAR leagues jump up and really give the fans more to watch through the winter off season.
Danny Bell?
I had a blast, and I think if you look at the top 10 results, it really speaks to, this series. Great diversity. You've got a part-time driver in Sage Karam right there that took a dominant win. 4 Penske's in the top 10, no surprise there. And a few outliers like Kyle Kirkwood effectively making his INDYCAR debut here on iRacing and at INDYCAR.com. So for me, what a great mental departure from some of the challenges that everybody's dealing with right now. It's great to reconnect with not only you, Lee, and Paul, but all of our race fans that have tuned in to watch this. We miss you guys. We'll see you soon. Hang in there. Better days are coming.
And if you like what you saw today, you can sign up at iRacing.com. We're very appreciative for the NTT INDYCAR Series and iRacing putting this together, and also our employer NBC Sports for fully backing this as well. Thanks to the American Red Cross for their support and everybody involved. What a day. We were back at the track, kind of. But it was a lot of fun. We hope you enjoyed it, and we've got 5 more of these coming your way. Barber Motorsports Park at 4 p.m. next Saturday. That is American East Coast time. Wherever you've been watching us from around the world, stay healthy, look after your friends and family and yourself. We will get through these tough times. We'll see you next week, and thanks for watching INDYCAR here on iRacing.